And a very good morning to you. I'm Keith Hayes. This is Mirador Television, broadcasting from the White Hart Hotel in Lewis. God bless it. I come in here in the morning. The place is shining with light. There's a big roaring fire, and the wonderful Jane is there to greet me and make me feel as if the week is worth heading towards, whether it is or it's not. I have to say the front of house staff here at the hotel are absolutely superb. Make you feel welcome, whether you're in for a cup of coffee or whether you're staying here or if you're actually coming to work at Mirador. They are great people, wonderful people. It's a very historic hotel. Sits right in the center of Lewis on the high street and drop by for a drink at very least, if not a little bit more, because it is lift your spirits. Absolutely lift your spirits. On a morning that is not too bad, actually, but it is still only -4 degrees centigrade. We're going to get a light breeze today, and all in all, not a bad day. And it's going to warm up as the week goes by. That's good news, isn't it? Yes, of course it is. Right, okay. What we'll do is we will, first of all, go to the newspapers because, once again, Sleaze is in the air, and they're having a go at Boris again. And the papers are full of it this morning. In fact, the Metro is Tories hit by a Sleaze storm. Boris bank chum. I'm now quite convinced that what happens is that the government particularly, but just about anybody else who has responsibility for our governance in Westminster looks for Sleaze. The reason? That they are so inept, that our society, our country, our living standards are in such a mess, and it's their fault. They're the leaders. They're there to lead us, to govern us. And they seem to have forgotten that they look for Sleaze to try and cover up their own ineptitude. Because we are still not out of the woods of inflation, even though international energy prices are easing. It's not being reflected in the house, in the home, or in the office. There are a whole host of other things. The NHS is in a mess. The civil service is in a mess. Just about every other quango government department is in a mess. And what do? They go looking for Sleaze to cover all this up. Not us, Gov. No. Why they're there, I have no idea. None whatsoever. Anyway, the headline in the Metro is Boris bank chum. And the story is that Boris, while he was Prime Minister, appointed a pal to a senior post in the BBC. It also says he's popped up in Ukraine and gave them moral support. Well, thank God somebody's giving them moral support. Here are brave people fighting everything that we say that we fight for, against authoritarianism, against democracy, everything. And how many of our current government, or for that matter, opposition people, pop up in Ukraine? barely a one. It's left to Boris to go and actually carry our flag and help to carry the flag against authoritarianism, against oppression, against the easing of democracy. But that's not good enough for anybody. It's what's Boris doing that for? Oh, by the way, another sleaze thing. Give us strength, for God's sake. I'm fed up with the excuses and so on for not addressing the domestic situation, things at home. Yes, of course we have to be international. But why sneer at Boris when he goes international and the rest of us are wondering what the hell's going to happen with the cost of living next? Makes you wonder what they're all up to, doesn't it? I'm not defending Boris. I'm just saying that he's the only one with the courage, seeming courage of what we say is a national conviction, and trying to hold fast with Ukraine against Russia. Right? The Daily Express, Boris back on the front line. The Daily Express says Mr. Johnson is back on the front line despite no longer being Prime Minister. He goes on to report that Britain's backing for Ukraine would last as long as it takes to defeat Russian President Vladimir Putin. Mr. Johnson said it was a privilege to show solidarity with the war-torn nation as he shrugged off questions over his finances in Kiev. What I think that should read is, as he shrugs off questions over his finances while he is in Kiev. That's what they mean. They can't even write anymore. They can't write, these journalists. No. Mirror, the Daily Mirror, a useful guide for Tories. Well, the Mirror, of course, has just gone downhill as a newspaper. It's almost on the level of the Sun and the Star now. It can't help but to have one thing, and that is to accuse everybody, wherever you're from, of elitism, whatever your political views. If they don't fall in with the Mirror, you've had it. They still don't get it, he says. It says they still don't get it. Earn money, pay your taxes, they quote one. Using a car, wear a seatbelt, it says Rishi. Need a loan, go to a bank. Yeah, well, that's all sensible stuff, but not for the Mirror. The Daily Mirror carries the headline, they still don't get it, as it dedicates its front pages to the weekend's top political stories about the Tories. It mentions Boris Johnson's loan story, as well as a former Chancellor, Nadam Zawi, reportedly having to settle a 4.8 million tax bill. It also reminds its readers that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was last week given a fixed penalty notice for not wearing a seatbelt. Oh, my goodness me. All those things will ease, if they were fixed, they will ease the cost of living crisis. They will ease inflation. They will ease growth. Oh, God help us. Why do we? Well, no. The Mirror used to be a great newspaper, and I think that it probably can become one again. But for the moment, it is falling in with the national mood. And we'll wait until we get to the Mail, which tells a story, in my view, this morning. The Guardian, Britain forecasts to reach a 1 trillion export target 15 years late in the wake of Brexit. Well, the Guardian's got to go for Brexit. It's all the fault of Brexit. The fact that we've got back to growth is all the fault of Brexit, yes. The Guardian's just as bad. What's happened to the British press? What happened to Fleet Street? What happened to the Great Days? I'll tell you what. We've got a whole bunch of people in charge who don't think that you should go drinking at lunchtime, who don't think you should go drinking at all, who have broken the solidarity between journalists who would get together and make sure that everything was covered, and who are flamboyant and wrote beautiful prose and told wonderful stories. Ha! Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. 3 bags full, ma'am. The Daily Telegraph. The National Grid is ready to pay customers to switch off. Well, that story is that the households will be paid to reduce their electricity use for the first time on Monday, that's today, under plans being drawn up by the National Grid. It comes as temperatures are expected to drop to -2 centigrade, which could ramp up pressure on Britain's power network. And yet, yes, it is. It's still -4 at 20 to 9. It's still -4. So that is quite cool. Although the forecast is for us to go up to 4 degrees today, 5 degrees, which is what it was hitting last week. Yes, it's cool, but it's not freezing. But no, everything is now down to the fact that they're unacceptable or unseatable temperatures. Yeah. The energy firms hit back at prepay meter ban with the threat of higher bills. Oh, these energy firms. You know, the funny thing is, there are things in the private quarter, and for that matter, the public quarter, the government runs scare of. Banks have won, and now the energy firms. They are terrified of doing anything to upset them instead of smacking them. And I'm sorry, yes, I'm old enough to remember Margaret would have spanked them, given them a bloody good spanking, and that's what they need. I can't see that coming from Sunak. I can't see that coming from Starmer. I can't see that coming from any of our present leaders. We need to shake up. We need to get rid of all these people from Westminster and start all over again. What, with a bunch of amateurs? Well, better than the professionals we've got, so-called professionals. Energy firms hit back a prepaid meter ban with the threats of higher bills. In other words, the government has said you can't put in these prepaid meters because when people run out, they can't starve. We cannot allow them to freeze to death. That's essentially what they've said. So what have the energy firms said? Well, if you're going to do that, then we're going to raise the price of bills. And the government shot itself in the foot. It is powerless to make these companies cap. I think we should, everybody is using a strike to get their way. Why don't we, as gas consumers, strike? Why don't we just tell these power companies to get lost and to reform and to start dealing fairly with us? Why? Because they need the money to shovel into their investors' pockets and into their executives' pockets. That's why. That's what you're paying for. These are billions and billions in profits. And it's the same with the banks. Reduce services in the high street, raise tariffs. I mean, a credit card with an average bank costs between 27 and 28%, right? And anything else, it would be outrageous. But not with credit cards. No. The banks coin it. Lloyd's made $6 billion alone last year in profit. Well, not last year, in 2020, 2021, I think. Made $6 billion. And what happens to it? Okay, chaps, it's payday. Gather in the boardroom and you'll get little envelopes. It's disgraceful. We have no true leadership. None whatsoever. And if we don't get a leader soon, we're going to cascade down the stairs to hell. We really are. The Times. National Grid to pay households for not turning the kettle on. Well, the National Grid, which is the national power company, which distributes, is saying to people, what you should do is to stop using various appliances and so on, and you'll get rewarded. I would have thought there is enough to get rewarded by having a decent price for heat. But if we're not going to get a decent price for heat, I don't blame it. If actually what we're doing is we're going to thump the power companies. But they won't pay that. It'll come out of the public purse. It's my guess. But universities' risky ties to China is its second headline. And the Times is worried an investigation from their reporting staff claims that more than 40 British universities have collaborated with institutions linked to malign activities in China. It says they have partnered with bodies connected to the Uyghur genocide, nuclear weapons development, and espionage defense research companies, hacking as it is. I mean, academia, I don't have a great deal of time for, to be quite honest with you. I think it's gone off the rails as well. It just simply it doesn't, excuse me. Academia is like government. It's just so out of touch with daily things. The people that are turning out from universities now, I'm not saying they're not clever. They are, but they have no experience of what they're going into, no experience of life. The old apprenticeship system is gone, which sort of taught them how to work at the coalface. Once again, they're contributing to a mess. Right, now the Daily Mail. The shocking rise of something for nothing Britain. Now, I have been thumping the tarmac, and I believe that we do not have a sense of duty anymore. We do not think in terms of what can we do for the country. All we do is we think of what can we do for ourselves. And according to the Daily Mail, there's a shocking rise of something for nothing Britain. Over half of households get more from state than they pay in taxes, while the top 10% of earners account for 53% of all income tax. And those are the people that we want to do away with. Yeah. Well, if we don't actually get with it, there's got to be reform. If we don't get with it, if we don't start to look at these things and root and branch reform, then I'm afraid we're going to burn ourselves out. I can well believe that we are shelling out more to people than they pay in taxes. And you can't keep that negative equity going for very long. No, indeed, you cannot. And the Mail says so. It says people in the UK are more dependent on the state than ever before. Some 36 million people are getting more from the government than they pay in tax. And that's a study from the think tank Civitas. The Mail says this is up from 24 million, or 2/5 of households, when Tony Blair was Prime Minister from 1997 to 2007. The Financial Times, the Eurozone to avoid recession in 2023 as energy prices in China boost outlook. Well, the slow fall, decrease in energy prices, and China getting back on track economically all have a bearing, as indeed anything that happens overseas does on our own way of life and our own economy. And so it looks as if with a slight improvement overseas, that's going to wash up onto our shores and help a little bit. The Sun, Judges Fury, BGT pay war. Britain's Got Talent, I guess, is Amanda and Alicia won't sign deals over a Bruno cash. Apparently, Britain Got Talent judges are reportedly refusing to sign new contracts as a newcomer judge, Bruno Tonoli, I think he was from Strictly Come Dancing, is set to be paid the same as them. It comes as filming of the new series of the long-running talent show starts today. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. More. As if what the hell do they do with this money? You know, if I was earning a few million, I'm not sure I would know what to do with a few million extra. It's just absolutely crazy. I mean, I'm sorry, but footballers, sports people, film people, television people, government people, all sorts of people are earning huge amounts of money. And all they want is more. And then they get all excited when a bus driver decides he wants more and goes on strike. Doesn't make sense, does it? No, it doesn't. Our entire world, our entire society is upside down, inside out, back to front. The Daily Star, a fury at price rises, taking the peas. Tesco boss hits out at big hikes. Greedy owners are cashing in. We're being taken for a ride. Well, you say that again. Because I keep my eyes open when I go shopping. I don't go shopping very often, but when I do, I take a look at what's happening. And Waitrose most certainly is taking the pee. Up until the crisis of inflation, which last 6 months, processed ham for sandwiches in Waitrose was £1. What was it on this Saturday? £1.50. Inflation, 10%. £1 to £1.50 doesn't seem to match with the 10% rise somehow. And there are other items in that store that go up proportionately. It's crazy. I mean, somebody is just sitting somewhere saying, hike this, hike that, without any justification whatsoever. Wow. Really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Really makes you wonder. Yes, indeed it does. Well, let's take a look, if we can, at what's running locally. Not always is there stuff that is worth the mention, really, but I think we should look. Sussex Live News, a driver causes serious threat to public. That is a headline, and I have no idea what the story is about. The top stories at the moment is destruction across West Sussex. Oh, as a driver causes serious threat to public. All right, let's take a look at that story and see what it's all about. If they're going to tell us. Right, a car dangerously driven into vehicles across West Sussex is causing destruction and a serious threat to the public. Right, okay. A trail of destruction was left across West Sussex on Saturday. That's this last Saturday, by an alleged dangerous driver causing a serious threat to the public. The car was involved in multiple crashes across the county throughout the day. Sussex police launched a widespread hunt for those involved after reports of a black Audi Q7 intentionally driving into members of the public and colliding with other vehicles in Warburton, Yapton, and the surrounding area. Well, not very nice. And if somebody is doing that deliberately, they need to have their fingers burned. Let's see. Sussex Live News. Sussex restaurants and pubs where celebrities just love to eat out. Oh my gosh, I'm very interested in that. Crawley supporters group urges club to educate after John Yem's racism ban. Well, if there's been a racism, it's worth taking a look at. Crawley supporters group urges club to educate after John Yem's racist ban. The Supporters Alliance, representing Crawley Town FC, has urged the club to educate staff going forward in the weeks of the John Yem's racism scandal. I have no idea of what that is. Yems, who was manager of Crawley until May the 6th, was found guilty of 12 charges last week following a lengthy investigation by an independent panel. That's going to change the attitudes. If I seem to be dismissive of racism, I'm not, because I'm not racist in any sense at all. Not at all. I have very few isms, if any. But I do think that we actually skim the surface and think that we're doing some sort of good for these things. Sussex hit with another Met Office warning. That came on Saturday, and that is about, here it is, it'll pop back up in a minute, here you go. a dense freezing fog and 50-metre visibility in Sussex as the Met Office issues a weather warning. A new weather warning lasting almost 11 hours has been issued. Dear, that not only has it been issued, it's disappeared. But anyway, we're past the we're past when that weather warning is in force. And in fact, today in the Lewis area, anyway, it is cold, but it's pleasant. There is very little breeze, and the sun is shining at the moment. All in all, the weather warning is not lasting for this particular period. So that is where we stand at 8:57, 3 minutes to 3 minutes to 9 o'clock, and YouTube has decided to play up. Why they actually do this sort of things, I have no idea. But yes, there we go. It looks as if yes, the picture isn't too bad this morning. We're back connected to a proper internet, I think, and I hope that that retains its standard throughout the period that we're on the air. Okay, let's have a look at one or two things. First of all, we had over this last weekend a plethora of relatively famous people who have written best-selling books at the Lewis Book Festival, organised by Mark Rattray, and he has a knack of putting together a really first-class lineup of speakers and people who have either written a book or have the background to write a book. One of them is Vince Cable. Vince Cable was the leader of the Conservative Party. He served in the Cameron government, and all in all is an expert on business. So he hived up in Lewis on Friday, and there to meet him was Liza Page to ask him a few questions about his premiership, his view on what's happening in the world, and the book that he is proposing to, well, it has launched at the festival. So here she is.
Into Mirador. My name is Liza Page, and I have a very special guest artist today, the Right Honourable Sir Vince Cable. Mr. Vince. Vince, you were head of the Liberal Party some years back. You have an incredibly distinguished career. You started off when you were very young in politics, didn't you?
Well, yeah, I was in my 20s and I lived in Glasgow. I was actually teaching at the university at the time, and I got involved in Glasgow politics, got elected to the council, stood for Parliament. But my 3 years on Glasgow City Council were, remarkable University of Life experience, and I learnt a lot at the time.
Yes. You've had a very distinguished career.
Well, it's kind of you to say.
And you have a reputation for being the gentleman of politics. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
No, I wasn't aware of that. And I try to be courteous to people and deal with, people in opposition parties. I don't believe in tribalism, and I don't believe in showering abuse on your opponent. So if that earns you the title gentleman, it worries me a bit, because I hope that most people do that.
Well, you do. And you're an incredible dancer, aren't you?
Well, I don't know about incredible, but I've certainly done a lot. I think probably about 25, 30 years ago, my late wife and I were looking for something to do together as our children had grown up, and we started doing ballroom and Latin lessons. Started doing exams to make us a bit focused. And sadly, she succumbed to cancer, and so I had to drop it for quite a long time. But after she died, I was looking for things to do, and I restarted with my dancing with my dance teacher, and I've kept going ever since. And even the years when I was in the cabinet, which was very fraught, I was used to set aside an hour on Friday afternoon when I was in the constituency to keep going. I'm still doing it when I go.
I think that's absolutely fantastic.
No, it's a very good discipline actually, mental and physical. And I wouldn't say I'm not bad, but no, I'm not a brilliant dancer.
No, come on, you won Come Dancing, didn't you?
Well, I was on Strictly Come Dancing, but that was the winter edition, the Christmas edition, so I only had one to do, not the succession of the serious contestants. But I got a 10 from Len, which I thought I've always put at the top of my CV. Yeah.
Because now that is very different in show business from being in politics, isn't it?
Well, when you're in politics, you need something to switch off, actually.
Yes.
People do it in different ways. Some of my younger cabinet colleagues were out there in the gym or squash courts, burning off a bit of energy. But I found a combination of dancing and reading novels what helped me to deal with all the emotionally churning kind of experience you had to deal with.
Yes, you have a new book coming out. I hear it's incredibly amusing. I haven't had the pleasure of reading it yet, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, it's the book I'm talking about at the Lewis Book Festival,
yes,
which is called How to Be a Politician, and it's essentially there's a collection of quotations, but it's structured with a narrative which I provided, based on my own experience and observations about what a political life is like.
They say it's very amusing.
Well, it's supposed to be. It's not a textbook, but I hope it has some fairly useful insights. And I start with a negative. The question I ask in the first line is, I imagine a conversation with a young person who says, I'd like to be a politician, I'd like to be an MP, to which my answer is, really? It's a tough life, a lot of luck, you've got to be at the right place in the right party at the right time. And also, a lot of your fellow citizens look down on you, there's a lot of distrust of politicians. So I try to answer that question as to why it is a worthwhile thing to do, despite the public disdain for a lot of politicians.
Yes, it sounds like a very, very tough profession and quite dangerous too. What is the future of the Liberal Party? Because you're retired now, aren't you?
Yes, well, I had a couple of years as leader. We'd had a disastrous election in 2015 after the coalition. I lost my seat, like most of my colleagues, Norman Baker and Lewis and others. But I won it back 2 years later, and I became the party leader. We had an up and down experience, but made a lot of progress in local government. And in 2019, we had spectacular local government elections and European elections. Briefly, we were the leading of the three major parties, but that didn't last. I retired, I handed over to the next generation. It was Joe Swinson. A mixture of bad luck and bad management. We did badly again. But I think under Ed Davey, the party is slowly recovering. We're doing well in local government. We're winning by-elections. We've had 3 spectacular by-election wins. And I think come the next election, the party is well positioned to recover quite a lot of ground. We're not going to win, but we target our resources.
Never say never.
Well, not this time. In the long term, anything can happen. But in the short run, there's a very disciplined targeting of resources on seats that we can win. Lewis is one, but places like Winchester, Guildford, some of the Manchester suburbs, where we're well placed and where the second to the Conservatives and Labour are really out of the running. I mean, that kind of seat, we have the prospects of doing very well.
Well, I really wish you luck. I'm going to ask you something. Now, I don't know if you'll find it funny or not, but how is Nick Clegg doing?
I haven't really kept in touch with him, actually. I met him briefly at the reception of the Privy Council at the swearing in of the King, and we just exchanged a few words. He's a very powerful man. I mean, he is effectively number 3, I think, in Meta's, the old Facebook. And he's got to make the decisions on things like, should Trump be allowed onto Facebook? It's down to him, he's the decision maker. Yes. So he's got a very powerful job and is, I'm sure, extraordinarily well paid. So yes. He's doing well.
Well, quite frankly, I'm glad he's out of the country because he's been dying to take away my bus pass.
Has he? Well, okay. I didn't realise that.
Now that you're retired, have you had sort of more time to think for yourself? Because politics, it's a incredibly absorbing work for you. Now that you're retired, can you look at the world situation in a different light? Do you have time?
Yes, well, I think since I retired, it was 3 years ago, we've had half of that under lockdown, so I had a lot of time on my own. I was with my wife on her little farm in the New Forest.
You have been very ill too.
Well, I had a what's called a mini stroke, but I recovered and I followed my doctor's advice, just kept going, and it certainly hasn't affected me since. So since I retired, I've really been writing books. I've done probably four since in the last 4 years.
You must enjoy writing.
I do enjoy writing, and I love the book festivals, as you have here in Lewis, where you come and then present it to the public and engage with a live audience. But I did one on what I call Money and Power, which is about politicians who take big economic decisions, going back to Alexander Hamilton, Peel in the UK, right through to Margaret Thatcher, Deng Xiaoping, and so on. I did another which I called the Chinese Conundrum, which is about the rise of China and how we should deal with it, I hope constructively through engagement.
Are you worried about China?
No, I'm not. I'm not as well. I think you have to be on your guard. I mean, they are changing the world. They are a new superpower. Their ways of doing things are not ours. They're autocratic state. But I think we could deal with China beneficially, economically. We've got to cooperate with them anyway over things like climate change, pandemics. So I would argue that this kind of Cold War mentality we have at the moment is not helpful.
No, they seem to be buying up an awful lot of property in Britain, and they own our water companies and the smartphones and these smart cities that they're trying to bring in.
Yes.
I find that petrifying.
Well, I'm not sure you should. I think one has to be careful.
How do you feel about this new world order, Sir Vince?
Well, it's different. I think we can't just go on the old world, which is sort of effectively run by the United States and Europe. The fact is, these big populous countries, China and India, are going to improve their living standards to our level. They're going to have much bigger economies than ours, than the United States. We've just got to get used to a world where the old powers of North America and Europe are running the world. It's going to be a different world for my grandchildren. And we've got to be grown up about it and learn to work with them and accept that they've got a different way of operation.
Don't you think that when they take away our money, though, we're finished?
Well, actually, I think actually China's had a generally beneficial effect on the world economy. It's helped to keep inflation low. 10, 15 years ago, it played a major part in that. Helped keep the world economy growing. Yeah, there is a downside. I mean, as I say, it's a very autocratic country. Some of their business practices are not what we would welcome. But the idea that it can somehow be suppressed is just for the, it's fantasy. It's kind of, they are, they're arriving as a major superpower. We're going to have to deal with them constructively. When I was in the cabinet, I had 3 visits to China. I had to deal with the leadership. They came here. And similarly, India, India has now got more people than any other country in the world. Its living standards are rising. There's still a lot of poverty. It is a major power, and the balance of power has changed, and we've got to learn to live with it.
What do you think of these, like Oxfordshire, cutting them down into blocks and saying you have to stay here within a how many radius? 15-minute radius of everything, and you're not allowed out unless you go to them and say, I'll register my car and I'm allowed out for 100 hours.
During the pandemic?
Yeah. No, now. Now.
Where is this happening?
This is in Oxford.
Really?
Oxfordshire, yes. And also the woman in, where is it, Scotland, is organising many of these cities.
So is this a traffic management issue?
They say it's to do with a climate change. Everything just seems to be to do with climate
Yes, well,
change.
climate change
to
is
stop
not-
people driving their cars and using walking everywhere, in fact.
Well, yeah.
And you're virtually in a prison there. You can't leave.
Well, I've not encountered that. I go to Oxford quite a lot. I think basically what they're probably trying to do is to encourage people to use public transport and bicycles if it's within a city, and that seems to be rather sensible. I mean, as it happens, one of the things I do is I'm on the board of a company which is trying to bring in hydrogen for heavy goods vehicles, because this, if we're going to take the global warming seriously, we have to reduce carbon emissions, and in the transport sector, that means, hydrogen for lorries, batteries for cars, and more people using public transport and walking. I mean, we're going to have to change the way we operate.
But are we going to have trouble with these electric cars getting the batteries, because the lithium, is it, that they have to import from other countries? It's slave labour to dig that out.
Well, I've not heard of slave labour. It's dangerous, obviously, if a raw material is concentrated in one hand.
Yes.
And that's actually why the company I'm involved in is producing hydrogen. Basically, hydrogen involves getting electricity from wind farms, which Britain has in abundance, and storing the electricity by converting into hydrogen, and then you take it to the lorries. So you're not dependent on lithium or any other raw material. We have it in Britain.
Sounds very, very complicated to me. I'm sure it's far more in depth than you understand it, and I don't. There's something though, a man in Parliament called Andrew Bridgeton.
Yes, he's just been banned.
Yes, and I'm just wondering why that happened.
Well,
because he was so informed with his information, and it took so long to get him into Parliament to bring up saying these vaccinations do need investigation. Why wasn't the Prime Minister there? There were very few people there.
As I understand it, what he said was very, very offensive. I mean, he basically said vaccinations is like the Holocaust, which is absurd and offensive to Jewish people. So that was why he was suspended from the Tory party, and they took their own internal discipline. I mean, I do worry about these anti-vax campaigns because we do actually need the vaccination, and it's helped us to get over the COVID pandemic.
Don't you agree that they really need investigating them, because so many people are dying of them?
Well, not of
and
the
there's been such a
vaccinations.
cover-up.
A lot of vaccination has saved many, many lives. That's why we got over the COVID pandemic. And it is investigating. The chief medical officer and his team have a team of scientists who are constantly investigating these things. They're subject to independent review by scientists. So, if there's any risk involved, they have been very, very thoroughly investigated.
I see. Just don't understand that either, because I'm a non-vaxxer.
Oh dear.
No. How do you feel about these vaccination passports demanding that people are vaccinated, when even if you are vaccinated, you can still pass on this so-called
Well, in a way, it's an issue.
Anybody.
It's an issue for the past. I mean, we've got through the pandemic, so it's no longer an issue, and we're no longer being asked to show COVID passports except for travel overseas. As it happens, I'm taking my wife on an 80th birthday trip for me, and we're going to Cambodia and Laos in Southeast Asia, and we have to show a vaccination proof. And travelling in many countries, you have to do that. But
yes,
we know
I can't go to America, for instance.
I think it's been relaxed now in America. I mean, we've relaxed it. The Americans have relaxed it. You can go around Europe without now showing certificates.
Yes, but they're demanding to see if you're vaccinated to go to the United States. Won't let you in if you haven't been. But if you arrive by private jet, you can go in.
Yeah, well, that would be outrageous if that happened. My understanding is that the rules have been relaxed, but I haven't been to the United
Well,
States.
listen, that's good news. I've enjoyed this conversation so very, very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Good, thank you.
To meet you, and good luck, all the best with your book, and keep on dancing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Indeed.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, there we are, Liza Page with Vince Cable, a former leader of the Liberal Party. Fairly straightforward discussion between the two of them. A fine disagreement, which we love on Mirador. We don't want everybody to have the same opinions. And I think they both acquitted themselves rather well in what they believe. So there we are. That is... the Speakers Festival, it's an excellent festival with the authors of best-selling books, which gives us access in Lewis face to face with many prominent authors, Vince Cable being one of them. But there's at least 20 others, organized by a chap called Mark Rattray, who does an excellent job, and he makes it a very reasonable price for people to access these talks. He manages to organize a really, really good field of speakers, and all in all is doing a superb job in bringing that to Lewis. And the next Speakers Festival is in May. So keep your eyes open for that. And I would recommend that you look through the list and pick an author that particularly interests you and go down, and you get a chance not only to listen to them, but to ask questions and to speak to them. And it makes for a very, very pleasant interlude in otherwise a very difficult life at the moment. Now, talk about difficulty is if you want to meet anybody with two left feet, it's me. And Joe and Lou, who were regulars on the Mirador television for a while with their dance classes, but basically what they did was they gave an alternative view to the judges on Strictly Plus Come Dancing, but they spotted me falling over my shoelaces one day and they said, "I bet you we can teach you to cha-cha-cha." And I said, "I bet you can't." So here is the result of their labor and my difficulty. Joe and Lou and one named Keith.
So I will say 2, 3, 4, 1, and then we march before we go to the side.
Right.
So first time we march is on 2.
Okay.
Alright, here we go again. 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, side. 2, 3, side. 2, 3, cha cha cha. Right, left, side by side. Left, right, side by side. Right, left, right, cha cha cha. Right, left, cha cha cha. 2, 3, cha cha cha.
I have 16 missteps.
I think we should teach Keith a little bit of the hip movement.
Oh.
What do you think, Keith? So what
Always
we're
wanted a
going
bit of a hip movement.
to do is we're going to draw a figure of 8 with our hips. Okay? So we're going to stand with our feet slightly apart and we're just going to move into a figure of 8. Think of your finger as a pen, a couple of pens.
Right.
And you're going to draw the figure of 8 by moving your hips. Okay? There, like that.
That's a circle, Keith. You've drawn a beautiful
Yeah, you're doing
circle.
Oh.
that sounds, you've got a good hula hoop going on.
Yeah. So where am I going to go?
So there, and a figure of 8.
So what
the
we're gonna
hip
do-
goes out.
Left one forward, lead the right one back. So left one forward and go back. And now the right one goes forward and back. So they go forwards and back. Forward
We've got a bit of a,
and back. We've got a bit,
status quo going on. So just a nice figure of 8.
Just want to
keep it
roll.
loose. Keep it loose. That's it. Loosen up. Nice.
Forward.
Figure of 8. That's it. Now you're getting it. Give it that. Give it some, Keith.
This is great stuff.
Can you roll your hips and move your feet at the same time though, Keith?
Now you've got to put that in.
2, 3. So you do your figure of 8 while you're closing your feet. 2, 3, and cha, cha, cha. Close, close, cha, cha, cha. Close, close, cha, cha, cha. Close.
Hey, there you go.
Cha, cha, cha. Close, close, cha, cha, cha. Close, and cha, cha, cha.
Yes. Woo! Perfect.
Well, all right. Okay. You win. I'm in love with you. Well, all right. Okay. You win. Baby, what can I do? I'll do anything you say. It's just got to be that way. Well, all right. Okay. You win. I'm in love with you. Well, all right. Okay. You win. Baby, what can I do? Anything you say, I'll do. Long as it's me and you. But the first thing in the morning, you got to wake me with a kiss. You got to make up for all the loving you have made me miss. All right. Okay. You win. I'm in love with you. Well, all right. Okay. You win. Baby, what can I do? Anything you do, I'll say. It's just got to be that way.
Well, there you are. Whether that was a success or not, I have no idea. But um, they tried their best manfully. They said they could do it. I'll leave that judgment to you. It's on the rooftops, looking out over Lewis. The picture isn't that great. I have no idea how to solve it, and I'm trying hard to find an expert to come and tell me. Everybody complains about the picture, and I don't blame them. But nobody bothers to come through the front door and says, "Keith, this is how you fix it." And I'm quite sure it's fixable. I'm having my little moan there. Perhaps it's worse for video than it is in real life. It's direct. Never mind. I think what we might do is once again, let's make sure that we go through the headlines again, because it's 9:27, and it's some hour now since we took a look at what the papers say, and let's catch up. Because there are a couple of things that a couple of things to pay attention to. The Well, I can tell you one thing is that the Sleaze thing is paying. Here we go. Is that the Metro is tourists hit by Sleaze storm. Boris bank chum, and what they're saying now is that Boris actually pulled out all the stops to get his pal to be the top dog at the BBC, and that he actually secured a loan as a result. Or he got him to guarantee an £800,000 loan. But I don't know what Boris was doing with that. I know that his lifestyle is pretty healthy, but I don't think it's worth 800,000 for just one simple loan. But then again, the Express, which tends to be government supporting paper, it just pats him on the back and says Boris is back on the front line, and he has turned up in Kiev again, and is beside Zelensky saying, "Don't worry, we Brits will never waver. We'll be with you to the bitter end." I'm not sure that he can actually guarantee that, unless in fact he's checked with Rishi and said, "Is this our official position?" But he's promised it, and now undoubtedly Boris, being Boris, will fight like hell to make sure that we stick to that promise. This war of attrition between Russia and Ukraine, it seems to be never ending. Just when one side seems to be getting on top, along comes the other and blasts the hell out of each of them. But it's a never-ending war. It looks as if Putin is determined to try and see it through to a bitter end, one way or another, and it is going to need international support. The Daily Mirror is a bit scathing about various government people. Oh my goodness me! The headlines are playing up too this morning, but from my memory, the Daily Mirror was expressing some complaints that people had, which to me are lightweight complaints. Is somebody saying, if you can't afford a car, don't buy petrol, or something like that. It's a bit equivalent to Marie Antoinette saying, "Let them eat cake," but no more offensive than that. But the Mirror has decided to take up that bits and pieces of that, because it wants to have a go at the government, or at least at Boris. And while I defend its right to do that, it does seem to be rather picky and not the standard that the Mirror, which at one time was a great newspaper, has reached nowadays. The Guardian, Britain forecast to reach £1 trillion export target 15 years late in the wake of Brexit. I mean, this is a sort of silly nonsense that the Guardian comes up with. It may be that we're going to be late, but laying everything at the foot of Brexit is a nonsense. And in fact, there are as many benefits from Brexit as there are downsides. What do we expect? A golden age just because we left the European Union? No. My view is that yes, it may well be right to belong to the European Union, but not as it's presently constituted. It needs radical reform. Mr. Gorbachev is said, and I quote this often, it is one of the great mysteries of his political life to see European politicians rushing with great speed to recreate the old Soviet Union. And I understand what he means. Central control is the power in the hands of a few, wielding the axe, wielding the whip in what's supposed to be a friendly union, keeping central control in Brussels to the exclusion of the member constituent states. That is not a healthy situation. And in fact, flies in the face of every other federation in the world. Canada, the United States, South Africa, Australia, even little New Zealand, all have a very loose central federation with lots of power remaining with the states. What do we do in Europe? We do exactly the opposite, and then we wonder why it all goes wrong. Ah, dearie, dearie me, dearie me. Daily Telegraph. National Grid ready to pay customers to switch off. To try and save energy, people, the National Grid is ready to reward people who don't switch on the lights or don't switch on the heat or whatever. It sounds to me a very strange way of going about things, but there we are. Perhaps it makes sense. Let's see, energy firms hit back at prepaid meter ban with the threat of higher bills. Now, this is where it gets obscene. The government said, look, the prepaid meter should not be installed and actually shouldn't be used because they leave people who can't pay vulnerable. The energy firms are saying, well, you make us do that and we're going to up the price of the bills, of the cost. It is actually significant and indicative of the way the big business is actually out of control. I came back to Britain in the 70s, where the unions were totally in charge, and that was wrong. But it's also wrong that we should have the energy firms and industry and banks running the country as well. We elect a government to run the country, and they run scared, either of the unions on one hand or big business on the other. And then they become pipsqueaks, making lots of noises and concentrating on whether, in fact, Boris had an ice cake at Christmas. Is if they got nothing better to do, then go home. We don't need you. We've got to have a reform and a different form of government. I don't advocate that, by the way. I am a great believer in democracy. But I think also we are responsible, both as an electorate and as a society, of making sure we get the best people in the job. And that's what we're not getting. There are 1,000 reasons why people are in the Houses of Parliament, and none of them are very legitimate at the moment. You've got to belong to a political party. You've got to go through what is sort of an apprenticeship, but isn't an apprenticeship because it doesn't take you outside the bubble. And all in all, we have a whole bunch of people who are there by ratios. You've got to have so many black people. You've got to have so many gay people. You've got to have so many women. You've got to have this, that, and the other. That does not constitute good governance. Not at all. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. There are 650 MPs, and if they were all black and lesbian, or all black and homosexual, I would care less as long as they were the best people for the job. That's what I look for. Merit. And, you know, I had a somewhat liberal, I should say, colleague one day when we were having lunch, and we talked about it, and he sneered at me for being a meritocrat. Oh, well, meritocrat. Well, it's a hell of a lot better qualification than we've got right now. And I think that meritocracy does have a value and should be considered. Because otherwise, what's going to happen is we're going to continue to be ruled by people who don't know what the hell they're doing and are only there because of either the color of their skin, their sexual predilection, and a whole host of other things that put them at odds with the ordinary electorate. And I think that's absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. Those are the main headlines this morning. No, hang on. Let's just a shocking rise of something for nothing Britain. Over half of households get more from the state than pay in tax, while the top 10% of earners account for 53% of all income tax. That's according to the Daily Mail. And they are saying that we are taking out more than we're putting in. Well, how long can that go on? There's no sense in raving and complaining about the national debt and how much taxes will have to go up to pay for it and what we're leaving for future generations. We're not prepared to really come to grips with the fact is we have no sense of duty. We have no sense of duty anymore. And that has got to change because if we don't have a sense of duty, then we are in trouble because we have got to take the viewpoint expressed succinctly by John F. Kennedy, ask not what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country. It's hard to get people to think that way nowadays, is gimme, gimme, gimme. See, who wrote that song? Gimme, gimme, gimme. Yeah, right. And that is a dangerous way of thinking for any country and any society. The thing is, it seems to be that the world has gone that way in the main, not just Britain. And we've got to get out of it because the free market system of an economic development is going to go by the wayside. And suddenly what we're going to do is we're going to be in a position where government will be in charge and clawing back so much money that the rest of us will not have anything to do. But it's all down to reform. We really got to have some sort of reform, because if we don't, then we will carry right on to the end of the road, the way that we are at the moment. And where do you think our ills are coming from? And why do you think that the politicians and the political area is always on about sleaze? They did this, they did that, they did the other. It's basically to hide the fact that they are all useless. That despite what they say, and politicians are excellent debaters in the main, they can make black look like white, poor look like rich, you name it, whatever you set them, through words and through the twisting of meaning, they can do that. But the fact of the matter is that unless we start to get some sort of decent governance, then our system of democracy is going to fall by the wayside. And that would be really tragic. Really tragic. Dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Deary, deary, deary me. Okay, what is it? It's 9:30, 9:39, in fact. And it is now, it's warming up. It's only -2 degrees now. And it's partly sunny. Actually, right outside our hotel window, our studio window, it's actually a very, very nice day. So I'm happy to think in terms of us getting let's see, a nice day out there, cold but fresh and decent. Normally at this time of the day on a Tuesday, not on a Monday, because Kevin's day off is on a Monday, but on a Tuesday, he normally is cleaning the pipes. And I have to say that he decides that in cleaning the pipes from the bar, that he asks me to be the official taster. So quite often I've had a drink before 10 o'clock in the morning. Just about this time, but he's not in today, and anyway, he doesn't clean the pipes until tomorrow. I'm looking. Actually, there's a whole stream of people going into court this morning. Must be a lot of naughty people around, and about to be have their sins laid bare before the world. Right. Okay. Now I said that I didn't have. A drink, or I do have a drink before 11 o'clock on a Tuesday and not on a Monday. So perhaps what we should do is let's take a look at just the one, Mr. Keith, just the one. The road from the shops, held up by ship's timbers, is the Gardener's Arms. There seems to be a tradition in Lewes, although no one admits to it, of omitting the epithet pub or tavern. This pub is called by locals simply the Gardener's. And the Gardener's it was. The origins of this pub go back to when it was an ordinary house, owned by a gardener. Often, after work, he would invite other gardeners into his front room for a drink. Eventually, it made sense to formalize the ritual, so it turned into a pub. The Gardener's is a true pub. Unusual now, it only serves pork pies and sausage rolls. Yet each year it's in the top tier of finalists for Pub of the Year. Stood proudly on the riverbanks. Harvey's Brewery, the key industry of the town. The bloody high street of a tiny town.
You'd think the old man would give up pubs for Lent or something, wouldn't you? Well, think on. He even gets absorbed in how the pubs were in January's time. Luddite.
Flanked by the church, the rectory, and the people's homes, stands the inn. In its shade and beneath its roof, men of all degrees and all opinions meet in comradeship and comfort. Walk through any English market town, and you'll find the inn at the center of its life. On market day, the people from the country around meet there to discuss the trend of prices, their children's health, and their home affairs. It's the same in the villages. When the sun warms the earth, They sit outside and watch the world go by. At the English Inn today, there is a hospitality that to the host is just as much a sacred charge as it was to the monks and barons in the Middle Ages, who first gave bread and ale to travellers. Often the only sanctuary in out-of-the-way parts, the monasteries had a lodge open to pilgrims and other wayfarers. Later, these lodges became separate establishments and were eventually run as inns, under such signs as the Pilgrim's Inn. One example of monastic origin is the Bull, which gets its name from the papal bull, or bill, not the animal. These inns of England have seen history happen in their yards. Pilgrims and warriors have trodden their stairways. Here, medieval knights refreshed themselves on their journeys to the Crusades, to fight under the banner of St. George. The inns have preserved much of England's architecture. The early inn has preserved some of the finest carvings and treasures. Like the church, it was a sanctuary. Hence, most of these carvings have a religious meaning.
English sparkling wines are beginning to win an enviable reputation across the globe, and that reputation is turning into sales. British supermarket chain Waitrose has reported a 188% increase in sales of English sparkling wine last year, and that trend is expected to continue. The soil and climatic conditions in southern England are remarkably similar to those of the Champagne region in France. So much so that leading French champagne house Taittinger has bought land in Kent and has begun producing English sparkling wine. But the owners of English vineyards are not prepared to take second place. Ridgeview Estate Wines in Ditchling has been producing English sparkling wine since 1994. And recently, the company received the prestigious accolade of having its wine served by the Queen to Chinese Premier Xi Jinping at a state dinner. Ridgeview is a family business which has a strong sense of history when it comes to its products. The vineyard's trademark is Merit, named in honour of Englishman Christopher Merit. This wine pioneer made a presentation to the Royal Society in London in 1662, explaining the process of making sparkling wines. That was 30 years before the French began producing champagne. Last year, Ridgeview produced a bumper crop and has similar ambitions for this year. The product can be seen at a variety of produce events in the region, notably Brighton and Hove's Food and Drink Fair in May. And the winemaker plans to repeat the success of last year when it introduced its range of sparkling wines to New Yorkers. Want to check out the claims that Ridgeview makes? There are plenty of stockists within the Lewes district. As one might suspect, it's available at Harvey's, but also Larder in Ditchling, Middle Farm on the road to Eastbourne, and of course the English Wine Centre at Drusilla's Roundabout. These successes have created a rush to develop new vineyards in Sussex. Licence applications last year were up by 40%. It's not just sparkling wines that are gaining a reputation. Still wines have also been around a long time. Both are now beginning to take the French market by storm, as demonstrated by the French purchase of acreage in Kent. The key question now is if growth will mean a larger and more expansive English wine industry, or a homegrown luxury product suitable for big and glittering occasions. For the moment, only time will tell. Trevor, where's my drink? Ladder Daniels of South Downs Television at Ridgeview Vineyards, tasting a true competitor of French champagne. So next up on Food Glorious Food, a new way to sell wines in Lewes. Symposium has a friendly, laid-back atmosphere with staff who clearly have a passion for wine. Symposium has a limited range of Sussex wines, but what they have is top drawer, and its range of quality grape types is within most budgets. Whether it's the cheese and meat platter, a single malt scotch, crunchy local bread or a glass or two of decent claret, this wine bar has found a unique way to sell its wines. And in today's world of big is better, the Symposium has found its niche.
Hey guys! In this video I'll show you how to prepare at home an incredible liquor. It's gin. For this you need 1 liter of 50% alcohol, 17 grams of juniper, berries must be navy blue and I've slashed them with rolling pin. Then you need 7 grams of coriander seeds, 2.5 gram of orange peel, 1.5 gram of lemon peel, 1.5 gram of cassia bark, and a pinch of hyssop, a pinch of anise, a pinch of fennel, a pinch of licorice. Fill up the jar with the alcohol and all ingredients and shake it. I let it infuse for about 6 days in the dark place, shaking it every day. After 7 days of infusing, it's time to distill it. I gotta use a simple moonshine still. I've dismounted a metal gauze from the shelf for better flavoring. By using a gauze, I filter the infusion into the boiler and add water. You need to get a 33% ABV liquor. The smell is incredible. Let's start distilling. I've set up a simple moonshine still, so only the cool box is working. Temperature's rising and I see first drops. I separate about 20 milliliters of 4 shots just for safe. I've set out the range at 1000 watts and start separating of gin. It's already half a liter, so let's check out the smell. It's very fresh, it's like a smell of fur. I've got about 600 milliliters and an alcoholometer reads 42% ABV. Let's stop separating, cause we have tails. ABV of gin is equal to 67%. I stretch it till 45%, leave for 1 week and test it. Let's start testing our homemade gin. It's stretched till 45% and it was infusing for 12 days. First of all, I'll test it in pure form. the aroma is very, very rich. It has nice, tender and harmonious aroma. The main player in flavor development is juniper. Not strong odor, but it's mild. And the juniper is contrasted with coriander. Let's taste. This also holds true for the taste. Taste is tender and mild. It's not a strong kind of gin. This one is tender and mild. I like it in pure form. So now let's test how tasty it's with tonic. I'll make a classic G&T in the ratio of 1 to 2. Well, let's taste. Delicious. Now I know how I drink it. Incredible combination. You can feel light bitterness, but it's just the right taste. It goes very light. The ratio of 1 to 2 is nice. Taste it. You know you can drink it all cause it's silky and freshalizing. As for me, the combination of this gin with Schweppes tonic is ideal. In conclusion, I'd like to say that I like this recipe very, very much. The combination of gin and Schweppes tonic is delicious. The taste of G&T is tender and it combines with all the herbs very, very nice. Just try to make it by yourself, guys. Thanks for watching this video. Thumbs up for new recipes, subscribe to my channel. See ya!
It'd be nice to talk to you, though. It would be nice to talk to you. Well, there we are. And we just had a gentleman who's been staying in the hotel wandering to say good morning because we bumped into him last night. He's down here from Coventry for some of the music festivals this weekend, particularly, I think, folk music. And he's leaving back for Coventry this morning. He decided to stay over because of the state of the railways, and he wanted to make sure that he wasn't crunched for getting home. He's in too much of a hurry to actually come on and tell us his experiences. That's a great pity, because we love having people who turn up at the hotel and getting a look at what they've experienced while they're here. Anyway, sometimes they'll join us, and sometimes they won't, or sometimes they can't. But we're always willing to, very anxious to talk to people to get their view of Lewis, to get their view of the world, for that matter, and anything else that they want to talk about. But we missed out on that one. Never mind. Is what we will do now is one of the things that is troubling me particularly is that we have uproar between Ukraine and Russia. We have uproar between the Chinese and other Southeast Asian states. We have some uproar, if you like, in India, another of the upcoming world economies. In other words, the world is in a pretty bad state. Not very well reported anymore. is the issue of Kosovo, which found statehood in the last 20 years and is nursing it towards a full democratic governance, supported by most countries in the world, although there are some that refuse to acknowledge it, Russia being amongst them, but most certainly Serbia, who were used to having it as a province in the days when it was the Yugoslavia and not the individual states. I spent some time in Kosovo, and it has bothered me enormously that in the last couple of weeks or so, the Serbs have been saber rattling on the borders, putting their troops on alert. Does this mean to say that we're going to get another violent episode in the Balkans? I don't know. But here is my little issue of my time there, and perhaps you might find it of interest. Kosovo in all its glory. The life of a journalist, a nomad or a Roma or whatever you want to call me, can bring up some very interesting situations and some very interesting places. And strangely enough, one of the places that I remember very fondly is Kosovo. And I had a couple of experiences there that I thought were amusing. They certainly weren't at the time, but in retrospect, not bad. On one occasion, I was there training some journalists, and there was a kerfuffle outside the office window. And I saw that the police were surrounding a man who was waving a revolver, and they had batons in their hand. Perhaps not unreasonable in the circumstances. But one of the chaps that I was training was an American photographer, and he was busy snapping away. And the police spotted him and immediately made for him, and he bolted back into the office. The police poured in through the front door, and my office was on the second floor. And I went down the stairs and in a very brave way said, "Halt, who goes there?" Thinking that perhaps the gesture might worry them, as they were Kosovar police and I was as a Brit. And an English voice came back and said, "Who are you?" To which I responded, "Well, who are you?" And it turned out these police were being trained by an English policeman. To which I said, well, if you're training these police and I'm training these journalists, you know very well that you cannot take a camera away from somebody in the street, except if you are suspicious that it affects national security. Other than that, you have no right to take a camera from people. He was a half-decent sort of chap, and we sat down and we resolved the issue. But in the meantime, my staff, seeing the police flood in, and Kosovo being Kosovo, where in fact the police had up until that particular time, post-war, in the early 2000s, had a considerable amount of power. And so they had rushed up the stairs and they had phoned General Agim Ceku. Ceku was a hero of the war with Serbia. He later became Prime Minister, and I believe today, is still a minister in charge of the armed forces. But I got to know him and I found him to be a very decent and honest man, even though he sees things as a soldier, and one would expect that. But anyway, we had become friends. And my staff had phoned the general and said, General, the police are going to lock up Mr. Keith. To which the general said, "Tell him not to worry. If he gets locked up, I will send the army down and get him out." It's the first time that I've had an army and the protection of an army to get myself out of a sticky spot with the police. As it turned out, the jail did not beckon, the army did not come down, but the fact that General Chaku was ready to send them in and get me out was very comforting. As it's coming up to Christmas, the other thing that I found very amusing is quite often very serious people get into debates about how intolerant we are and that societies should recognize those who are of different faith and so on and so forth. Well, Kosovo is 98% Muslim. And one of the things that I wasn't sure about, and I didn't want to offend my staff, and I said to them, would you like to celebrate Christmas? Do you want to decorate the office? And what do you do? Oh, yes, please, they said. Well, I had a little bit of money in the budget, so I said, well, off you go, get a few decorations. And off I went. I came back later in the day and there had been hectic activity, and I walked in and there was more ribbon, more baubles, more Christmas decorations, more tinsel than you could shake a stick at. There was a Christmas tree, there was absolutely everything. And you understand I've never been to a brothel, but that's the way I think that an inside of a brothel would look like. It was decorated to the hilt. And this in a Muslim country. And I walked out later that day and they sort of laughed at me and said, Mr. Keith, we don't really worry about these things. We celebrate Christmas and we enjoy it even though we're Muslims. And sure enough, outside the main hotel, the Europa Hotel, there was a nativity scene, quite a large one, put there by the city. And around the corner was a mini moke, one of those sort of open jeeps that you find at the seaside whenever we're allowed to go to the seaside. The people travel around it. And around the corner came the mini moke with music blaring, jingle bells and carols and so on and so forth, and with a Father Christmas yelling out, Merry Christmas, have a happy time, and so on and so forth. It took me aback. The one thing that you expect in a Muslim country is that they don't celebrate Christmas. My goodness me, in Kosovo it was a Christmas to remember. It was terrific. And we had several parties, initiated, I may say, by my Muslim staff and not by me, although I'm always good for a party. So, out of jail, courtesy of the General, Christmas in a Muslim country with mini mokes, Father Christmases, nativity scenes, and an office looking like a brothel. Doodle pip. Oh, sorry for the little bit of black there. Nonetheless, it doesn't hurt anybody, does it? No, indeed. Now, last week, I showed a couple of snippets of what sometimes goes on when you are trying to put a program together. And I thought it might be worthwhile taking a look just once again at how we venture forth and or fifth or whatever, and is try to put together some of these things, not always in advantageous circumstances. Let's just take a look at how we used to fare on location, not very far away, up at the castle, but nonetheless try hard to prepare for a morning program. Here we are. Okay. Oi.
Don't oi me.
I know you hate me saying
No. Don't.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. There we go. We're in the historic part of this morning because behind me is a barbican, right? And it's a daddy barbican. It's a wonderful barbican. It was built in about the 13th century, 1200 or so, as an adjunct to the castle, which was built in, some people put it down as about 1880, although most people say it's about 1840, 80. My goodness me, it's looking at you, thinking of 18. Of 10, 10, 40. But it was a wooden one, and it was the Normans after 1066 who built a series of castles. This was one of the smaller ones, but perhaps one of the more important ones. But anyway, the barbican came later in about 1230 or 1240, and I was quite happy to come and take a look at the barbican because Mirador, the name of our television program, is Mirador means a little barbican or a little turret. And since we say that we are the smallest or the biggest little television station in the world, is we thought coming here and showing you what a daddy barbican is like would be a good idea, didn't we?
Yes, dear. Daddy Barbican?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Couldn't you think of something better?
Well, you know, she wants everything her own way, every way. Anyway, one of the interesting things is that it was a very modern beacon in its day, because up there you can see that there are holes in the roof, and that was so that they could pour oil or garbage or whatever onto anybody who was unwelcome.
Wow. Well, I'm glad I didn't live in those times.
Yeah, but I could drop an egg on you, couldn't I, if you tried to go, if I didn't want you to.
I don't know. Will you be able to get all the way up there?
Oh, she's treading on dangerous ground now.
Or would you like me to help you?
Oh, she's in fine form this morning.
It's a beautiful day.
Go on.
No, that's all.
Oh, that's all. Yeah.
I love to sing, but never know the lyrics.
Well, I'm not going to sing myself this morning. That might drive everybody away. But actually, the barbican has stood the test of time, and is in very, very good shape. And it was a way of protecting the castle in a way that it hadn't been protected before. And when the castle was attacked, which it was many times, but particularly the Battle of Lewes, it didn't do a terribly good job of defending itself, although history tells us that the attackers, it was the king's men who defended the castle, and they did manage to defend it because it was on the top of that hill, or motter. You didn't know that, did you? You didn't know what a motter was?
No.
Motter.
Would you like to tell the viewers what?
Well, a motter is a man-made hill. So the castle is on a man-made hill. The volume most certainly isn't. You're remarkably quiet this morning. You're not having a go at me. What's wrong?
I don't know. You're not saying the right things.
You know,
It's your fault.
the trouble
Always
with,
is.
Yeah. Trouble with youngsters is they have no appreciation of history. Not whatsoever. She stands there. When we get back, she'll say, "You go." No.
You're also forgetting that we were together, so most of your stories I've heard about 251 times. So if I don't sound too excited, it means I've heard it all before.
Is 251? Does it sound like number one? What I meant was, is the first time I told you, does it sound like the last time?
Do you mean it goes boring? It's
Ooh. Oh my goodness me, she's really working at it this morning. Get out the wrong side of bed. She probably did, you know.
Sometimes saying less is best.
When did you ever say less?
Okay. That's fine.
One for the old guy.
I'll go with that.
Oh,
I'll give you that today.
yeah, very kind of you. Oh, you are most kind.
Kindness is my middle name.
Anyway, we've got a good week for you on Mirador. We've got all sorts of stories with all sorts of different people. Jake is going to make an appearance, and Melissa White, not Melissa Conti in New York. She's going to make an appearance too, with some really good and exciting people. The people that float around Lewis. Hidden Lewis, I call it, because nobody knows that they're here until you scratch the surface. And they are.
Where?
Well, not in the Barbican, unless for damn sure. Right.
All right, boss.
Oh, she's full of it this morning. Anyway, we look forward to having you with us during the week. We're going to stick around the castle and just take a look at some of the history of it. It is a fascinating castle, it really is. And one of the stories that I rather like, that nobody can confirm, is that Charles II, when he was on the run, actually hid in the castle. And when the Cromwellians got up there, there is a passageway, a hidden passageway down there, over there, to Antioch House, which is in the bottleneck. And he used to zip down. So they'd knock on the door and say, "Is Charlie here?" And they'd say, No, try next door. In the meantime, he'd gone down to Antioch House. Oh, isn't that fascinating?
It is indeed.
Oh, I knew that you'd like it.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Nothing to do with secrets.
that's the sort of nonsense and quirkiness you can expect this week, mostly from her, not from me. Say toodaloo to the folks.
Goodbye.
Toodaloo.
Toodaloo is your saying, not mine.
So that's what you have to put up with when you're out, particularly with somebody like Annie Verrill, who's got a mind of her own and a mouth to suit. But then, since we very much the mouth roars on this program, perhaps one can expect it. I had hoped that we might get Suzanne Michaud in from New York, but she is traveling, and that makes it difficult for her. Sometimes she's 8 hours difference because she goes to the west coast of North America quite a bit, including British Columbia. And she will be back, and so will Melissa Conti. Now that we are getting into the new year, into a new series of programs, but also into a new frame of mind in the way that we actually deal with various things. We still haven't got this picture right yet. It gets a little bit better each time, but that's not good enough. Somebody is going to be strong-armed into taking a look at this. And I think that we almost know what the problem is, and we just hope that one way or another we can keep it on the straight and narrow. And because we have got some pretty interesting stuff, as you can see, watching it with a less than perfect picture is not ideal, and we really do have to try and resolve it. The big problem is that, of course, a good part of the day is spent broadcasting, and to get somebody in to take a look has to be well coordinated. Anyway. Here we go again. It is now -1 degree, so it's pretty cold this morning, even though it looks as if it was going to warm up throughout the week. Will it or won't it? It's always difficult. Well, predicting the weather is almost impossible. But we keep on at it. Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps. Oh, there you are. That's a twist in the tail for the energy companies. And let's now, I think, let's take a look back at some things that we've done in Lewis in the past. First of all, let me tell you that it's now 10:23. That is the 23rd of January, 2023, and we are Mirador Television, broadcasting out of the White Hart Hotel in Lewis, where it's the courtesy and the old style fits in with the surroundings. And guess who is here? Miss Beauty personified. Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And you?
I'm good. I'm good. It is early Monday morning here.
But you've been doing some traveling.
No, not. I'm going to travel next week. I'm going to Las Vegas next week. So.
Oh, are you going to do a little gambling?
I don't think so.
Oh dear, you're not a gambler?
I know I'm a horrible gambler. Like every time I try to gamble, if I even make $1, I stop. I'm like, all right, that's it.
You and me both.
Yeah,
I can remember a time when in Northern Ireland we went to a race course called Down Royal. My wife had the same sort of sense of humor that you did. She was very bubbly and so on, and she placed a bet on a horse. And we were watching from the rail, and she said, "My horse hasn't come around yet." And in Northern Ireland, they always send an ambulance around after the horses. So the ambulance went by, and suddenly her horse ambled by behind the ambulance. That's how good a betting person we were, a betting couple.
Oh, it's such a cute story.
Now, we've had some fascinating people, and you spoke to one of them a couple of weeks ago at the Outlook Festival, and it ended last night with a lady who's, I think, is now becoming the editor of the Washington Post. And will be arriving in that position pretty soon. So you may see is a Brit when you look at the Washington Post. But it was a very successful couple of weeks, and I did have, I think I told you, a gentleman on who looked at ruins and so on from the air. And at some stage, I'm going to see if I can tee you up with him again, because I think the two of you would have a quite fascinating chat about that.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Actually, when I was teaching last semester, I had a student who was an expert drone photographer. And it was incredible. Is that what he does? He does it with drone photography, or does
he actually does it from a Cessna, I think. He when he was a student, I think that the Air Force tried to con him into joining the forces, and they trained him how to fly before he said, no, this is not for me. But he turned it into he does have a television series, and it does look quite serious at these things. They identify stuff that has never been seen before, and then of course they go down and they dig around and so on and so forth and uncover it and find out what the Romans were doing, what the ancient Brits were doing, and they poke around at Stonehenge and some of the other better known places. So he's quite an interesting character and a very nice man too. So I think you'll enjoy him.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, boy.
Now, tell us what you've been up to. What have you been up to while we've been away?
What have I been up to? It's been I guess like a month and a half of celebrating the holidays. My oldest daughter was home from college, and I got to hang out with her a little bit. So she left, but went back to school, and going to interviewing and I'm doing a lot of business development too. And I started as a board member of an opera company.
Wow. Oh, tell us all about that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's this beautiful little opera company called Teatro Grattacielo. And they do operas all around the world. The director of the opera his name is Stefanos Koroneos. He would be a great guest here because he's lovely. I mean, he's just amazing. And he used to be an opera singer. And then he became the director of this opera company. And he develops about 3 or 4 operas every year. And the reason I met him was last summer, the students I was working with did the animation for one of his operas in New York City, down in Battery Park City. It was beautiful. And so then we became friends, and now I'm on the board and helping him meet more people. So it's great.
Can we get him up at an ungodly hour in the morning, do you think, one morning?
I think so. I think we can try. I mean, at least once, I'm sure.
Yes. Because I know that grasping, you trot around the world and grasping some things that we talk about totally. But of course, about 4 miles from here, from Lewes, is the world famous Glyndebourne Opera. And it started off on the estate of the lord of the manor. And the village of Glynde is a tied village. In other words, the family own it. I know the concept doesn't sit very well with some people, but actually it benefits the village because no development can take place unless they get the family nod. So there's no untoward building and no spread of unsightly stuff. But anyway, this opera takes place. A series of operas take place throughout the summer in the theatre attached to the old house. And people from London who are opera aficionados put on their dinner jackets. They bring down a hamper and they sit in the grounds and eat their picnic with champagne and oysters or whatever before going in to enjoy the opera. And you regularly see them turning up at Lewes Station in their dinner jackets and their fine gowns. And then you see them coming home again at night. But it is a very famous opera, and I'm sure that your director will be aware of it, and it would be nice to talk to him about it.
Oh, yeah. No, he would absolutely be aware of it. And that's such a lovely story. You see, it's always something to look forward to every summer, right? There's something really amazing about opera. I mean, there's not that everyone understands anything that's going on in an opera, but there is this sort of kind of communal aspect of it, which is really kind of lovely. So,
yes. the thing that I have to get my mind around is that, I mean, for instance, in something like Aida, is that the hero that we would always think of as being a lean, fit soldier, and the heroine is a beautiful lady, is that they both turn out to be quite full of figure, shall we put it that way? Because
Yes,
that's where their
yes.
voice comes from. And grasping the concept that is a fat little man can be leading an army is sometimes you have to get your head around that. But then, of course, you get lost in the beauty of the music and the power of the voices that are used, and it's quite remarkable.
It really is. This summer, we the opera that they put on was Romeo and Juliet, but it was a certain version. And you're sitting there. It was just such a spectacular sight. We were right on the water on the Hudson River, and you had the Freedom Tower behind you, and then in front of you was this fantastic orchestra. And I was surrounded by people having picnics and drinking champagne. And then these two people are falling in love and deciding to kill themselves for it, and you're just like, whoa, it's like it's incredible thing. So
your opera is outdoors.
Whoa, that was my watch talking to me. No, well, that one was, but he has there's 4 this season. One is in outdoors in Crete, actually.
Wow.
And then 2 are indoors in New York, and the 4th one I think is in another location. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, so I would love to go to the Crete one. My husband's like, "Do you have to go?" And I said, "Oh yes, I have to." Not really true, but
when we first came back from Northern Ireland and we were sort of being shown the delights of Sussex, we went to an open opera. I think it was Rigoletto, if I'm not mistaken. But one of the storms came in that are famous off the English Channel, and this was at Hastings, in the grounds of Battle Abbey, which is where William the Conqueror defeated the Saxons to change the whole history of Britain. And it's in the grounds of that abbey that they hold this thing. But a storm came in, and they gave us all those paper waste, plastic waste packs to put around our legs and to pull up so that we could brave the storm and the opera could go on.
You see? I'm telling you, those opera singers, they're strong people. They're like,
absolutely. And the audiences are strong too. Yeah. Nobody abandoned ship. Well, I think this is absolutely fascinating that you're on the board. Now, what happens at a board meeting? When you go to a board meeting, what sort of things do you talk about?
Well, I don't know. I haven't gone to one yet. I just joined. I just joined. But I do know that this board is really, he forms the board around meeting people. That's why he asked people to join. So so we were brainstorming last week about maybe doing dual fundraisers with different groups of people that I know in New York. So we'll see. It'll be, as with any nonprofit, they need to fundraise and everything. So
yes, that's exciting. I knew you were up to something. Whenever you stop talking to me, I know you're up to something, and then you spring it on me.
Yeah, and today I have my stress test and my echocardiogram, so I have to do my running.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So I'll keep you posted.
Well, I have no problems with cardiac affairs because I love so many people. My heart pumps and it keeps it very fit.
Oh, that's nice. Well, that's what I'm going to tell them today when I go. I'm very much in love with my husband. I'm A-okay in the heart department.
Yeah. It's lovely. So how often do you have to do this, Suzanne?
The heart test?
Yeah.
Oh, hopefully only today. Hopefully they find out today that I'm fine and then I'll never have to do it again. But
it's just once in a while check.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So that's on today. Have you? Did I understand you correctly that you've lessened your relationship with the university a little bit?
Yes. So I am in the midst of looking for my next role. But I am doing a lot of work with other international companies. So actually next week when I'm in Las Vegas, I'm going to a conference and introducing a company I'm working with in Portugal. which is a stone company, to different people in the United States. So, but they do beautiful work. So, it's going to be a lot of fun to see if they can breed some more work in the States. So,
Yes. Am I right? I mean, I'm vaguely remembering days that I've spent in Portugal. Am I right that in fact there are some marvelous marble factories in Portugal?
yes, yeah, no, I mean, it's
I am.
incredible.
I
Yeah,
know.
and of course the quarries, they have gorgeous, gorgeous marble, gorgeous limestone, in sort of the middle and southern parts of the country. And then in the northern parts of the country, it's mostly granite. So it's a different type of stone, but all really beautiful. And then there's a project in New York that was done by LSI, this company I'm working with. It's called the Perelman Art Center. And it's a building that is completely clad in this marble that's basically fabricated by the company I'm working with. And it's designed to be trapped between two pieces of glass. And then it's hung in a frame, a concealed frame. And then the whole building is lit up like a lantern. And you can see straight through the marble because it's cut so thin. It's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. The architect is called Rex in the United States. So that's going to be opening in 2024. But that marble comes from Portugal. So,
Right. I mean, can you right now? Can you see through the marble?
yeah, you can see through the marble. Yeah, it's amazing. I was actually in the quarry, and the architect who chose this marble, he actually decided that he wanted. I don't know if you ever understood. Anyway, when you pull stone out of a quarry, you're always going with the grain of the stone. And then typically you also cut with the grain of the stone. But this architect wanted the stone to be pulled out crossway. So it was pulled out in smaller blocks and then it was cut smaller. So the panels are only about 2 foot by 3 foot or so. And the entire facade is designed in this kind of book match, slip match sort of layout. So it's a completely coordinated, every stone was chosen by hand, and it was pretty interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, but you can see right through it.
Can you get us a couple of photographs of that to show in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I can do like a whole little video series.
Oh, why don't you?
Making...
Yeah,
Okay,
that would
yeah,
be wonderful. Yeah,
yeah, that'd be lovely.
yes.
And that'll be a new art center, a new performing arts center in the city. And it's right next to the World Trade Center, or to the old World Trade Center, the new Freedom Tower.
Yeah. How's my little pear tree?
It's good. It's fine. It's fine.
It's flourishing.
It's so crazy to think about. Do you remember when I did that? There was literally no one anywhere near me. And
Yes.
now it's packed again. So thank goodness.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. No, it was nice to see that open space.
I know, that was just a crazy time. And then when I did that thing at the little video at the Seagram's building, and there was nobody around me for hours, what a crazy time.
Yeah, well, that's a good place to have nobody around the Seagram's building.
Why?
Well, Seagram's are whiskey, are they not?
They're what?
Seagram's are the whiskey company.
I don't know. Are they the whiskey company, or are they oh, maybe they are. I thought they were the soda company. No, I think they're the soda company.
Well, there are some Seagram's. I mean, it's quite a famous whiskey in Europe. But I'll look it up to make sure that I'm right, because I'm not a whiskey drinker, I'm afraid.
I think you're right. I think there is a whiskey, but I think this particular family is the Seagram Soda Company based in Canada.
Right.
I think, but
yes, right. Yes, but I mean, one of the important things I think for some of the stuff that you uncover for us is not just because we're a small provincial town, but I think that most Britons don't really have the concept of what New York is about. Yes, Times Square, and perhaps one of the baseball playing fields, and that's about the lot. And you uncover a lot of these things for us, and particularly those that tucked away that nobody would ever dream of being in a huge metropolis like New York. And it's edifying and educational. So the more that you can dig up, the better.
All right. Well, I will continue to dig up things. Having lived here my whole life, I was at a party on Saturday night down in the Seaport area of New York, and which is much smaller buildings and right on the water. And it was my friend's birthday, and she had it at an amazing Indian restaurant. The food was incredible. And it was fun because we went to that party and it was really sweet. I've known her for a long time. And then David and I, my husband and I, walked over towards the water and took these cool, moody photographs. So it was fun. But that's a fun area in the city. Not everyone goes down there, so it's really pretty down there.
And that's at the foot of what, Manhattan?
Yeah, it's right on. I mean, it's really close to the tip, but it's on the eastern side of the tip of Manhattan. So,
just as a sort of once again, what we always think about New York, but I happened to switch on the television the other night, and there it was, a night to remember, about the Titanic and its last fatal voyage. And I found that quite fascinating. And I mean, it's a very sad story, of course, but nonetheless, in days gone by where the first class passengers were treated like wonderful human beings, and the steerage passengers stayed downstairs, as it were. But that, of course, was a great period of immigration for the United States, wasn't it? At the end of the 1800s, the beginning of the 1900s.
Yeah. Ellis Island is right off of the coast of this part of Manhattan. Yeah. So, different time, right? When everyone was kind of looking for a better life. I mean, we have a lot of immigration happening now that the United States is trying to handle, just like a lot of other countries in the world, taking refugees from countries. So, but I don't know. There's something very magical about Manhattan. When you're down there, the city is still quite small down there, the scale of the buildings, but then there are these huge skyscrapers right next to them. So.
Well, I did walk the length of Manhattan one Sunday from just I suppose what I would say north, but above Central Park, right down to the tip. And it is a fascinating journey. I couldn't do it now, but I was a little younger then. And one of the things I think is that the culinary fare that's on offer. I mean, the one favorite place had to be there was a little bar in Soho that always served Bloody Marys for Sunday breakfast.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but then you get to Little Italy and Chinatown, and you could tell me there must be other areas, culinary areas, where you can get almost the real thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, the food is amazing. I will say the food took a dip during the pandemic. So many restaurants closed, but they're opening again. I mean, the Indian restaurant was fantastic. It was called Tagmo. And then yesterday I went to lunch with some friends at a French restaurant on the Upper West Side. And actually, while we were going to that restaurant, there's a place called Barney Greengrass on the Upper West Side, and they're famous for their sturgeon and their smoked salmon. And I've never been, but it's kind of like a New York City legend kind of place, So I don't know.
You better get down there. We want a full first-hand report.
I will. I'll just, I will do that. And then, the building that I worked on for so many years, the new building at the American Museum of Natural History, it is basically almost finished. So yesterday we were driving by it. It just looks spectacular, and it'll be opening in February. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I mean, the development around, I mean, we're coming back after the pandemic, aren't we? With a lot of things that mostly are beneficial, but life is changing, and part of the change is architecture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's for sure. I mean, this building is very unique. I can actually show you some pictures of that building too. It was designed by an architect named Jeannie Gang, and she came up with the idea of her sort of, I guess, her creative generator was the idea of flow. And so she did a bunch of studies about melting ice and how the ice melts and how you form a pathway through it and how, canyons form. And so this building is this gargantuan canyon that has cenotes on the top. So these small kind of apertures of skylights that are carved out of the roof. And one of the greatest things about the building is that it now allows you to walk around the entire museum without hitting a dead end. So you can kind of really do a swing around and help circulation. But it's a crazy building. I mean, it's nothing like anything you've ever seen. So, and she's been doing some really beautiful work. There's been a lot of really great architects lately, kind of challenging the assumptions of what a building should be. So it'll be fun to hear what everybody has to say.
How are some of your graduates making out? Are they making their mark?
Yeah, they're so cute. I mean, they're not that, I don't know why I think they're not that young, but they're all, they actually all graduate this spring. So they're all looking for jobs. So they're emailing all the different architects that I introduced them to and trying to get some different positions. So yeah, they're doing really well. I mean, this is their last semester, so it's a big deal.
Tell me, one of the things that is happening in the UK, not as fast, I think, as some people would like, but there are so many graduates after one job. I mean, just as an example, about a year ago, we actually, for a small operation like Mirador, asked for a videographer, and within 24 hours, we had 150 applicants. And
Wow.
This is one job in a tiny little place. So, and if you expand that to the UK, there are lots of people chasing one jobs. But what the government decided, and it always takes the British government time to push it through, was to encourage people to set up their own businesses, to become entrepreneurs. Is that any sort of movement in the United States?
Oh yeah, I mean that's the U.S. I think the bulk of our employment is small businesses in the United States. I mean that's always been, we're all a bunch of entrepreneurs, a bunch of swashbuckling kind of people. But I will say, I actually have a lot of friends who are owners of engineering firms and architecture firms, and they actually can't get enough employees.
Really?
Yeah. There's a lot of work out there. A lot of infrastructure work, as you probably have heard. I mean, we made a big investment in infrastructure recently, and you have to hire so many architects and engineers, and they're just not as many as they need right now. So, but then of course you heard about the big layoffs by Google and and soon to be Microsoft too. And but I know that they'll all be absorbed by other industries because the other industries need those kinds of people. So, but
if that sort of industry is beginning to, good morning. Here is Lena, who's my Russian friend. She's come to make sure that I'm going to get breakfast.
Oh,
and the other thing
nice.
is, be careful, she'll try and match us up. She's got a husband, right? Lena approaches every lady that comes to the hotel and says, "Go and marry him."
Oh, that's nice. You see, she's looking out for you.
Absolutely. And when we finish the program, she'll have a glass of wine in the front bar ready for me.
Wow, that's amazing. What a good friend.
Yes, indeed. Mind you, her husband is there as well, so that that's why she's always trying to marry me off to somebody else.
Okay. Well, we've got to get you a really terrific lady, Keith.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I'm not sure that anybody will have me at this stage of my life. But tell me, Google and the high tech companies are laying off. What's the growth industry in the United States? Who's hiring? Who's expanding?
I mean, infrastructure is still a big thing that's happening right now. But I actually think most of these technology jobs will be reabsorbed into different portions of the economy because there's just so much growth actually in technology, but not necessarily traditional technology. So, for instance, all of these architecture and engineering firms all need to have people in technology. But also, have you heard about the Chat GPT? Have you done that yet?
No.
Oh, the artificial intelligence augmented.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's hilarious. So my husband asked it to write me a love letter. You have to do this, Keith. You have to have somebody, if you don't have it yet, have somebody help you, and then you can have fun with it. Because it was hilarious because it wrote this beautiful love letter to me. And I was like, David, this is the most beautiful love letter you've ever written. He goes, oh, thank you. It was AI. It was so funny. But from what I understand, that seems to be something that people think will really catch on.
I know, right.
Yeah.
Our good friend Rosie Hayes, absolutely no relationship to me, but Rosie was a leading journalist at about the same time as me, and she spent a lot of time in Cuba. She interviewed Castro several times, but she now runs her own small news agency, and she did 2 or 3 items on people who are experimenting with artificial intelligence or robot waitresses and so on, and that was quite amusing. Oh, thank you. She did the thing where the owner had to sort of program in go to table 13. But when it went to table 13, it was terribly polite and efficient and so on and so forth, and took back the right drinks and food. And whether in fact we're all going to have AI maids and butlers, I have no idea.
Well, that would be really nice. Seeing that I have nothing now, it'd be great to have a robot. But
Absolutely.
yeah, my daughter has braces. She goes to an orthodontist, and they have a robot that comes to bring you to your to the dentist, to the orthodontist. It's really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that how intuitive it actually is, even though it's not something any of us are used to. This robot rolls in and says, whatever, Genevieve Downey. And so then she just pops up, and then you just hit this button on the screen of the robot, and it goes, you are going to seat 16 or whatever. And then so she gets escorted over to seat 16. I mean, it's amazing. I think if you're able to do those kinds of short kind of interactions with them, that it's quite successful. So but I don't know how long it will take for it to have a robot sitting next to us and being our friend and helping us do our work and stuff. So.
Mind you, things happen at such an incredible pace, don't they? And when you think about it, it wasn't that long ago that the Wright brothers were proving that you could fly.
I know,
and now look at the things that fly and where to. And that's only in a short space of less than 100 years.
I know, it's amazing.
Yes. So I think that AI will take off in a really big way. But my thesis, don't you? You're of course you'll be familiar with the triffids.
The triffids?
The triffids. Do you not know what a triffid is?
I mean, I know what a triffid is, but I don't know if we're talking about the same thing.
There is a book called and a movie called The Day of the Triffids.
Oh, no, I don't know.
The original Triffitt book was written by John Wyndham. Find it. It was published in the 1950s. But essentially, the story is that mankind develops a sort of semi-animal robot that produces oil. And it happily does that until one day there is a starburst and everybody goes blind and the Triffids take over. And my thesis is that they've been lurking, waiting to take over again once we actually got rid of them. And that because we were so dependent upon computers, instead of using them to do what we want, is letting the computer tell us what we've done, the Triffids see that as a weakness and they're about to pounce again.
No doubt. That's we're on the cusp of that for sure.
John Wyndham, The Day of the Triffids. It's a bit terrifying, actually, but it's a very good read and a very good movie.
All right, I'll definitely have to read that. I actually I've joined a book club, and we are having lunch to discuss the book on Saturday, and I haven't finished the book yet, so I have to finish that book.
What's the book?
It's called Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow. And
Who
so
wrote it?
far, it's sort of I've been putting it off until tomorrow.
Oh, you're a true journalist. Do it the night before. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, you know. And then it was funny. I was talking to one of my friends last night. She's like, "You got to finish the book, Suzanne." I said, "I'll finish it. I'll finish it." And I was like, "I mean, will they even know if I finished it or not? You know, I don't know."
Well, the other thing is you can always guarantee that you read one paragraph, and the rest of the book you don't read, and that the one paragraph is the one thing they don't ask you.
Yeah, I know. Or everybody talks about the entire book, and you're like, "Yeah, but that page 25, that was the one that really struck at my score." You know.
The best thing is just to look knowledgeable and nod.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why you eat during these things, right? Because you can say, "Oh, and just this lunch is amazing."
Suzanne, that's fascinating. We've been talking for over half an hour. It's 10:56 and time for us to sort of move on. So just to recap, you're going to get us some photographs of the two architectural developments that you've talked about.
Yes, yes. Parrowman and the Gilder.
And if you get an opportunity, the pear tree.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I'll do that too.
I think we should nurture. That should be one of Mirador's things, is to nurture the pear tree at ground zero.
Oh, that's a nice thing. Yeah, for sure. And also, we'll have Stephanos join us one morning. I will recruit
Oh
him.
yes, please. Yes, and try and get him out of bed just a little earlier, because with somebody as fascinating as that, I'd like a good sort of half to 3/4 of an hour with him. So we don't want him hurried in any way.
Okay.
But I think that it would. Talking to him about the concept of Glyndebourne and so on, born out of a tide village, as opposed to you developing it on the banks of the Hudson River, is a fascinating contrast.
Oh, it absolutely is. He'll love it. And you will love him. He's just amazing. So
That's great. Well, are you with us next week?
No, next week I'm traveling to Las Vegas, so I can actually join you while I'm in Las Vegas. We should
I
do
think
that.
that would be marvelous.
Okay,
Yeah.
that'll be funny. Maybe I'll walk through the.
Yes, I mean the casinos go night and day, do they not?
They absolutely do. I don't even know if they close. Yeah,
you won't have to get up for it. You can just do it from one of the slot machines.
That's a good plan for me. I'm much better later than I am early. So,
well, I mean, that would be fascinating for you to do a little piece inside a casino at Las Vegas.
All right,
I have no concept of what these places are like. You know.
Oh, you've never been to one?
I've never been to one.
Oh, all right. Well, then we definitely have to do it. We'll figure out which day. It can't be Monday because that's the day I'm traveling, but we'll try another day.
Okay. Super.
Okay. Awesome.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Suzanne.
All right,
have a good week, and we look forward to talking to you next week. And we've got some exciting things to talk to you about in the weeks ahead. So
awesome! Can't wait.
I'm organized.
Okay. All right. Ciao.
Bye. Bye. Well, there we are, Suzanne Mouchot, and it is now 10:58. We've ranged through a number of things this morning, and I hope that you found some of it informative and exciting and interesting. And we shall say, let us say that Stuart Dolby will have actually an item, because he was the interviewer of a lady journalist of his past experience, who was at the Speakers Club festival last night, and we couldn't do it as an interview as such, so it needs a little bit of editing, which we'll do in the next couple of days, but that's quite fascinating too. And then, of course, Stuart will be along with his conversation later in the week, and I hope that Liza Page will be along, and we've got our usual string of people doing extraordinary things, giving extraordinary views. There is nothing normal about Mirador, and some of these views need airing and debating, and you may not agree with them, but it's interesting and it's important that we know that some of these views are held by a fairly large number of people, and that what one might say is the norm is anything but. That's our life today. anything but. And as Suzanne says, artificial intelligence, it's on the way big time. So we have to keep an eye open for that. Thank you for being with me. And it is bang on 11 o'clock. So here we go to say cheerio. And we hope it was...